Okay, it says it's recording, so I'm going to have faith that it's recording. So good day wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back on another Old Souls interview. And for those who don't know, this is the interview. So we ask people, how do they know what they know and when did they know it? And today we have an amazing person that we are going to interview. This is Mr. Dylan Newcomb. Say the last name because I know I butchered it. Newcomb. Did I say it correctly?
Newcomb, yeah.
Oh, Newcomb. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to give any background on him as an individual, because I think that we are going to venture into many different places in this journey, and we get the privilege to listen and to share. So, Dylan, welcome to the Old Souls interview, man.
Thank you, Rod. It's an honor to do this with you.
Dylan and I we used to work together, and he was my manager, man. And I'm going to tell you, there was many things that I learned from Dylan with all of the great conscious work that he's doing. And so he'll probably touch on more about the kind of work that he's doing. But Dylan, okay, so I've shared with you that we talk about how do you know what we know, but I do want to start you with this question, man. Who are you now in this present time, in this present moment?
Who am I? Let me give you a choice in how I can answer that.
Okay.
I could talk about just concretely, what do I do how do I fill my days? How do I pay the rent? Okay. Where do I live? I could talk about how do I answer the question, who am I, and how I experience my selfhood at this present stage in my evolution.
Give me a mix of both. I'm gonna let
because my mind goes in both directions when you ask me that question.
Okay, let's give me a bit of the first, and then you can give me a bit of the second one. I want you to feel at liberty giving it to us.
All right. I am, practically speaking, I am a husband. I'm a father. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I live in Maine, in the United States, in the country. Look out the window, I have woods around me. This is pretty much where I grew up, although I lived half my life from 20 to 40. I lived in the Netherlands, in The Hague, where I was a dancer and a composer, and then a consciousness mind-body researcher. And now I am a personal development specialist, I think we could say. In a broad sense, I use that in various ways. So I do a lot of one-on-one coaching through therapeutic developmental coaching, focused primarily on life purpose and helping people lead more purposeful lives in a soul-aligned way. And that can get into purpose clarification, but also into trauma resolution, because trauma blocks purpose like nobody's business.
Well,
and a lot of this technique that I developed called Uzazu, which we'll probably touch on at some point during our talk, which is just a way of working with sound, breath, and movement to get people into different states, specific states of being that will help them both experience and act in specific ways. So helping people to, whether it's focus or to relax or to receive or to be more determined, right? Helping people shift state into whatever states are going to serve them. So I spend a lot of my time developing that modality, teaching it, training people in it, combining with my one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. So that's on a practical level, what I do.
It's a full course, man.
In terms of the more metaphysical, existential, experiential, who am I now? It depends on the day. It depends on the moment. I'm at a place in this incarnation where the notion of Dylan is such a funky thing, you know. It really is this construct of, you know, it's like in the store, you know, when you have the mannequin and they dress them all up so you can really get a feel for what that outfit would look like, you know. And you go like, yeah, or you go like, ugh. You know, you react to it however you react to it, but you're clear that it's a get up, you know, and either you dig it or you don't. Either you're willing to shell out for it or you're not. And so there's all these apparent traits that Dylan-ness exhibits, and they change like the weather, and some features are fairly recurrent, of course. But it's a kind of a get up at it, you know, it's an appearance, and sometimes I dig it, and sometimes I dig it less, right? Sometimes I go, oh, let's change that. That ain't so helpful. I tend to take it much less personally than I used to. And it triggers emotions, still triggers emotions. You know, I might do something that I see was unskillful, you know, and then I'll feel sadness, you know, pretty standard stuff. But it's like all of that happens without me needing to be Dylan. You know, oh, unskillful action, sadness, oh, even maybe shame. But all of that stuff can happen without me needing to be Dylan or feeling that I am Dylan. It's just, it arises, the different layers, the actions arise, the reactions arise, the feelings arise, the emotions arise. But there's no self becomes, this being's experience of all of that is kind of the space through which that all happens, if you will.
And let me ask you this, Dylan, and you may be explaining this. What does it mean to be Dylan? As you talk about not having to be Dylan and to still function out of this space.
If we're really holding the word Dylan and the concept of Dylan, then I'm not Dylan, functionally speaking. From an experiential point, is kind of what I'm saying. But I am definitely, I have his address. I wear his clothes. I'm the person that people are referring to when they say Dylan, and I'm down with that. I have no problem with that. That makes sense. That's functional. I'm not gonna like return my mail or something because I'm beyond it.
Well, we appreciate that and giving us a name that we can call you.
Yes, isn't that handy? It's like an IP address for your computer. It's like, unless you have an IP address, it's really hard to exchange data packets.
Could be.
And that's what functionally speaking it is. You know, it's like, you know, the internet needs an IP address to know where to, you know, how to process those data packets back and forth, and so works, you know, the energy and information of the universe. And so I have an address, and that's called Dylan. But there's a different thing between having an address. Dylan is my address, you know, but I am not that address. And so when you, that's just why when you say, who am I, in the context of an OldSoulz interview, I feel obliged to speak more to the core of that. It's not, you know, I wouldn't, like in a cafe, if somebody says, oh, who are you? I'm not going to go into all this.
Well, sure.
Well, it's interesting you should ask, because really,
I mean, they may order you another cup of coffee, and they may, you know, put something in their coffee to help understand you a little bit better. They may, you know, smoke a little something to help, you know.
Depending on where we're at, or they may call, you know, hand me a card to their shrink. You know, yeah.
Perhaps, man. What Dylan? Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway.
No. I want you to keep that same channel, but I also want you to bring us into what you know. Bring us into your childhood. Bring us into your growing up, if you will, and bring us into where did this part of you start to recognize or be aware that the concept of Dylan has these several different layers? Does that make sense?
It's a fun space to enter. Let's see what happens.
All right, let's do it.
Let me just start here.
Okay.
I have my experience of death. Let's talk about death. My personal journey with the relationship to death. I was always fascinated by it as a kid. Always fascinated. I mean, many kids are. I never stopped being fascinated with it. It always just seemed like a doorway, like that's for many kids. A doorway, and then you're curious about what's on the other side. And so when things died, I was never sad. I was never sad. Like, I was instinctively not sad. When my grandmother died when I was 14, I was very close with, I was surprised to see I wasn't sad. I mean, a little bit, but not really. I was more really curious for, I don't know, I get this odd image at the moment. I don't know why. I've never had this image with it before, but
sure.
It's like when you're a kid and you're at a carnival and there's the fun house, and you haven't been into the fun house yet, but you imagine it's fun, and you see kids going in there, and you're like they go in, you're not gonna be sad that they went into the fun house. You're gonna be like, oh, I want to go there too. I want to know what's in there. And that was kind of like what it is. It's like, oh, somebody's going into this playground, into this fun house, if you will.
Wow.
And there was more this sense of, rather than like, they're gone.
Right.
And so I was just always sitting with that. As I became an artist, it was funny. I was like 28 years old, and I was looking through my collection of CDs of previous musics that I'd written, and I was looking at the title. I had this like amalgamation CD of like 8 years of work, and it hit me. Something like 10 or 11 out of the 12, let's say, tracks that I was looking at referred directly or indirectly to death, and it had never friggin' occurred to me.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. But again, not in some kind of way, more like in a
morbid kind of.
Yeah, like respect, mystery, poetic, fascination type way. I found this book when I was in my late teens from Stephen Levine, who was a Buddhist teacher, called Who Dies. He did a lot of hospice work. He applied Buddhist insight meditation, and he also worked under Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a pioneer in the hospice movement.
Okay.
And it's a series of he's a beautiful writer, of beautiful reflections on his work, with people dying and their various experiences of that process, and what's possible. It just really opened a door for me of seeing, because as a young person, I wasn't around that many people dying. It's getting a window into all the different ways we respond to letting go of this, and our notions of what we might be entering into or not entering into, or whatever. And I was just so gravitated towards it. It wasn't until I was about 21 that I started having past life experiences, where I started, it was my first like 10-day meditation retreat, like on day 6, where I started, going really deeper than I'd gone before. I think it was like my 3rd retreat or something. So I was just, slowly sinking deeper into the meditation, that something opened up, let's say. And I started having an experience of being someone else. And it didn't scream, there's no sign over it saying this is a past life experience or anything. So it is, a modern Western scientist would probably, say that's a very dangerous assumption on my part to call that a past life experience. But yeah, there are thousands of people who have had these type of experiences, and we all swear up and down that they're past lives. Right. It just has that unmistakable feel to it. However, whatever details that you describe it and explain the phenomenon and whatnot, like there's that sense of no, this is me, temporally extended, if you will. This is me. Like, I know this is me. This was me. Just like I have childhood memories, and I know that was me. except I'm no longer a child. I was in that when I was a falconer in somewhere in the Middle East. And without going into the details are fairly irrelevant right now, but it was just so vivid, and there was so many different knowings, just in a very hard to pin down way. You're just all of a sudden you're a different person with a different culture and a different belief system and different everything, and yet it's so first person.
Let me ask you this, because this topic has come up in previous interviews on OldSoulz. It's the ideas of reincarnation and cellular memory, and it seems to be kind of this divide about the two actually being one of the same, with our cells having carried the traits and carried memories themselves of previous generations. And I think that that's really interesting, because when we think about Rupert Sheldrake's work on morphic fields and the collective consciousness, and how the collective consciousness influence us as individuals. And, in my mind, as I'm now just kind of having a moment thinking about cellular memory in conjunction with the morphic fields, and how those things can possibly play out, whether it be through dreams or meditative states, or just even in daydreams or just moments. I don't know what question I want to ask with that, but I do want to ask you, what's your thoughts about cellular memory and reincarnation, and possibly the morphic fields? I don't know if that would be too much to try to tackle right now, but speak to that.
Yeah. I do have Sheldrake's book. I've read it years ago. I've gone back to it a few times, but I'm not like solid with his work in this. Not in terms of a mastery of his. I don't feel like I've internalized a mastery of his concepts. So I'm hesitant to speak too deeply about a concept like cellular memory. But I do have some thoughts. I want to share. I want to put maybe add one thing into the mix of related things in this space. In which is hyperdimensionality. We tend to experience three dimensions in a concrete way, and then if we were to call the fourth dimension, there's differing takes on this, of course, but if we were to call the fourth dimension time, right, we could see this moment as a slice, each moment as a slice, right? Just as if we can take a stack of papers and call those, let's say, roughly 2D, and we can make a volume by extending these this way. So we could take slices or boxes of 3D realities, right, and extend them 4D as 3D slices that make a stack in 4D of temporal extension, right? So if I were to look at myself as in this incarnation as from a 4D perspective, right, I would be morphing through time, right? I would literally, like a fast forward video of myself growing from a baby to a man to an old man, right? And if I were to see that as, we tend to think, oh, I only exist in this moment. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There's only the now. Well, from our conscious perspective of being in 3D, yes, we could say it's not real. But what if it is there? Just like spirits can be present, but we don't necessarily see them, right? What if it's all there? What if it's all existing? What if the quote unquote past and the quote unquote future are just extensions in a dimension that is always existing, that we in our normal state of 3D consciousness aren't attuned to? And in those moments when I am having a past life experience, I'm extending my awareness temporally in a dimension, right? So I'm feeling into a part of myself that is dimensionally extended in a way that I normally don't have access to.
Wow.
So in my experience, more and more, I exist. That's a part of me, temporally extended that whatever, whatever you point to. It's hard to
Sure,
point to fourth
sure.
dimensions. Mm-hmm. We tend to hypothesize it back there, but there are some cultures that actually point to the future there.
Sure.
Very few, but a few do. And the future, I had this one experience probably about 7 years ago. I was doing this retreat, this solo spiritual retreat, and I was in a little piece of desert, and all of a sudden I was looking around at some rocks, and I had this vision of myself in a circle with all of my past and present incarnations, and we were in one circle as a wisdom council, and sharing with each other. And no, there wasn't a hierarchy of like,
wow,
the future generations were wiser than the older ones. There was just the sense of each of them occupied, just like the sun, the earth goes around the sun, and each of the seasons has the wisdom of each of the seasons to contribute, right? The summer shouldn't get all haughty that it's, older and wiser than the than the spring.
I love that.
They each have their function, don't they? I don't love my daughter more when she's 7 than when she's 4.
Right.
That my earlier incarnations, my middle, my late, my future ones, it helped kick me out of this space of I'm less than, and I will grow into more than, and my next incarnations will be more than. But just each of us having this value, each of us, each part of me, temporally extended.
Sure.
Having its unique seat, having its unique vantage point, its unique gifts. And I would be lying if I said that I am living each moment of my life fully grounded in that perspective. But it is a seminal thing, experience that I've flashed, however long it lasted. It was probably an hour or two that I was in it. That is seminal for me. I always come back to it. It made an indelible mark on my experience of reality. And when I'm in my more full self, that's how I'm holding myself, as a wisdom council of souls, extending temporally past and future.
Dylan, what really resonates with me in that experience is there was a practice that I developed in my own personal meditation time that included the ideas of the spooky particle that disappears and appears at random, is what the science community would call it. And I just really start playing with the ideas that, what if, since those particles exist in us and they're appearing and disappearing at random, each time that we go through, when we're having a moment here, and it be someone who's experienced trauma and someone who's experienced a moment, whether it be of bliss, and that part of them literally disappears from present. Oh, knock my glasses off. Disappears from present and goes to that literal space. Because we think about David Bohm's, I think it was him, but the ideas of the torus and the kind of cyclical movement of what we perceive to be time, but it's all moving in this kind of motion as opposed to the linear. If we think about those experiences in conjunction with this, that everything that we consider to be experiences is being, to a degree, recycled. I don't have a better word for that, but just kind of even considering what you talk about the past lives, and you talk about the extended versions of the concept of Dylan, that all of these things are happening in a very simultaneous moment. And in this body, we're experiencing it in a particular way. So it really resonates with me, because there are some things that I've experienced very close to what you're describing. Not necessarily under the same language, but man, the concepts themselves are they're in deep relationship. What do you think about the whole kind of torus cyclical kinds of experiences? What's your thoughts about that?
I got it. I got a lot.
Did I hit in the well, man? Speak to me.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. The movement modality that I referenced earlier, Uzazu, that some about.
Yes.
is very intimately connected with toroidal flows. We work a lot with toroidal flows. So there's a lot of different ways that you could target. If you think about the flow, let's take a flow this way, right? There's a compression and an expansion inherent in it, right? It comes in, it's compressed, and it expands out. There's also that whole thing is happening within the flow of an individual piece of torus is on a spiraling arc through that thing. It's not, go uniformly, it's going like that. I tend to model and experience the present moment and the sort of cycle of the process of the present through a toroidal flow. Wow. Which has 4 basic stages in it. Might be fun just to lay them out. It's pretty straightforward.
Let's get it.
I'm receiving data, right? There's my experience in the moment of whatever my sensory apparatus, both, on all levels is taking in, right? Then I'm trying to process that, right? I'm trying to take that together and to process it, okay? In technology terms, that's data input and then processing and compression. I need to digest that down into something that I can do something with, right? That's this part of it where it's sucking in the experience, trying to process it, okay? That from here, this is just the basic stimulus, okay? There's the basic stimulus out here. Then as we process it, that's what we call appraisal, right? That's my process of what's, and early development, it's all based on yummy, yucky, right? It's all based on, oh, I like this, oh, I don't like that, right? As a little kid, we're like, oh, the shiny object or mother, the sound of mother's voice or the harsh sound or the yucky taste, right? So we're processing this stuff. It's coming in. I'm doing it.
Sorry, I'm letting my mom know it's on the interview. I'm sorry.
Mom, not now.
Right. Get off me, Dylan. Get off me, man.
It was cute. It was cute. So yeah, we're appraising stuff, and experientially, that's, if we want to get a bit philosophical about it, that's our experience of beauty in my theory and practice, if you will, right? There's this is how we bring things together, how you personally, how it comes together in Rod land, how it comes together in Dylan land. Again, that address at your epicenter, your IP address, how you are processing the information, right, as you're experiencing that. There's actually studies that point to, scientific studies that point to, our capacity to compress data is intimately related to our experience of aesthetic beauty.
Wow.
So how we are processing,
Dylan,
how
say that one more
something.
time. Dylan, can you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, your aesthetic experience of beauty, functionally speaking, in terms of you as an consciousness embodied, is directly correlated to your capacity to compress that data. You hear some music and it just like flows right in at that moment. That's because your state, your consciousness, your whatever, easy for you to digest. You're like, same song, different mood, different day. You're like, turn that down, turn that off. Right? It's like, does not process easily.
Wow.
Now that's first person beauty. We're not getting into complicated notions of, is it beautiful, is it not? I'm assuming that we're holding beauty as a first person experience, which is like, how are you taking it in and processing? Okay. So we have stimulus, which is just the qualia. Then we have your appraisal of it, which is like your beauty, right? Then it reaches the zenith in the middle, right? Where it's going to flip. There's a mirror symmetry there, right? Where which is this way is now going to start going out the other end, right? So stimulus, appraisal, then we have response, right? Now, what's actually at the zenith right there, which is causing that stimulus to be appraised and then responsive. Now, that is a really fascinating little thing. right there, right? And I think that is a hyper-dimensional little portal.
I see.
And that how you choose to respond to that stimulus at that moment, your soul's journey, the morphic fields of your culture, the waves pulling from the future and pushing from the past, all of that shit is influencing that little turning point. And what causes, one moment my daughter can piss me off and I'm appraising this as really inappropriate behavior from my naughty 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. One moment I respond with compassion and grace and precision, and the next moment I yell at her.
Jekyll and Hyde effect, man.
So I'm so fascinated in the appraisal to response flip and what's going on right there, right? So the response is what we could call truth. If we're talking, I'm going to get into beauty, truth, and goodness in a flow, right? So truth, some philosophers will argue that truth is, there's different notions to truth. We could go real long on truth, but, and some people can go way longer than me. I'm not an expert in it, but, is our response to a situation, right? In this notion, truth is kind of a reaction, that which will right. When you talk about Plato's ideals, right? There's this kind of thing of an ideal is that which will bring symmetry. That's what will bring balance, right? So we appraise a situation and we sort of take stock of its asymmetry, if you will, right? And then there's the truth about it, which is kind of like trying to balance the equation. It's trying to balance the books, right? This is what's right when we talk about just action, right? Righteous action. They talk about that a lot in the Bible. Righteous action, right? That's taking that appraisal and a response that rights any asymmetries, that corrects it, straightens it out, right? And then we go out here and we look back on it and we look at appraisal, response, right? Appraisal, response, and we say, was that a good response or not? That time I yelled at my daughter, was that good or was that not good? Right? We look at the balance of that appraisal response. A lot of people just talk about stimulus response, but it's actually stimulus appraisal response, right? And then the final step, which is reorientation. Right. So there's a reorientation of, I yell and then I go, oh shit. Or I say something and I go, did that help? Where are we now? Right. So we're always going through that thing of stimulus, appraisal, response, reorientation, which becomes the new stimulus with the influx of the next moment's input. Right. So that is a toroidal flow. Sorry, I got off in this whole long thing here.
No. Maybe. Because you've prompted a few other thoughts as well, but please continue.
Cool. Well, I think I'm basically there for now. You got me started because of this toroidal thing, and I'm all about it. So with Uzazu, we work with something called cyclical flows of 4 steps. So we're always working with stimulus, appraisal, response, awareing, right? Stimulus, response, reprisal, stimulus, appraisal, response, and then reorientation, or what I call awareing.
So stimulus, appraisal, response, and reorientation. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Uzazu is just a way of going through that with different flavors, if you will. There are different ways to hold, to be a receptacle for stimulus, right? And depending on how I calibrate myself to receive stimulus, right, kind of like a radio tuner, you can tune into different channels, right? You can set that different. You can appraise. You can appraise in different ways. You can appraise according to a strict set of standards. Right? Like if I'm editing somebody's document for a certain cause, like I have to be appraising that according to certain standards that just have to be met.
Sure.
If my daughter's washing the dishes, I'm appraising her washing the dishes, not based on
How clean the dishes may
that I
be,
love her.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, what are the conditions and what balance,
Mm-hmm.
so meaning there are conditions around that appraising. And so how do you
Sure.
set that? What conditions are appropriate? And what responses, how to gauge those responses. So OldSoulz is a way of working with all four of those phases,
Mm-hmm.
really looking at the holistic flow of those phases and how they affect each other.
As you
and
talk
how that's happening on different scales.
As you talk about balance, one of the terms that come to mind is just homeostasis, and how our brains, we desire balance. How does your programs or what you do, how do you consider the process of homeostasis? And do you think it has any, do you highlight some of its processes in your line of your body of work? And for example, that space and time where there's the cognitive dissonance, where you're not really sure how to appraise and how to assess. And that process of, I don't like this, I like this. You haven't come to that zenith moment to make a conclusion or to come to a truth about the experience.
If we were to, if we were to continue to talk within this frame or related to that frame, might be useful. Well, the first thing that comes, there's different ways we could speak to that. One thing that comes to mind a lot is simply how much time to spend in each one of those phases, right? Sometimes things are going too slow here and you need to like speed it up and just generate a response, to get some momentum into the system, and then you can reorient and then take it from there. But sometimes it's just analysis paralysis, right? Other times, it's like, no, I need to slow down and I need to recalibrate. Wait a minute, how am I holding this? How am I appraising this? Right? Maybe if I just give it some time and don't respond to my wife while I'm upset right now and go, I'm going to right this wrong because what you did was an injustice and I'm going to make it, justified right now by giving you a piece of my mind,
Right.
Because there is that kind of righteousness when you get, so I might want to hang out and wait a minute, maybe I can spend some time with it, shift how I'm holding it and how I'm processing it. So resist that urge to spit it out the other side. Right. And the same thing with deep questions, as Rilke says, live into the questions, honor the mystery of that.
Yeah.
And for me, hanging out here in that first stage and not even rushing into the appraising piece is become one of my biggest delights. Like, how much do I really need? How much does my toroid need to suck in? Like, at a certain point, you could just sort of like, especially on the mental level, I was saying this process can be tracked on multiple levels. On the rationalizing level, I think one thing that's happening as I get more mature is I have a less hungry rationalizing Taurus. Something will happen and my mind won't as much need to jump on it and turn it into a story. I need to process that and spit therefore out. Like,
that's good.
Why?
That's good. If we can, let's take a few steps back because we've gone deep. At least for me, we've gone to some deep waters, man. What I want you to do, if you don't mind, can you do an exercise with us? Can you do maybe one exercise to show the manifestation of what you just talked about, using the body and first I would like for you to even
Sure.
Okay, yeah. If you can go back, and I want you to just show the way that you use the body, the I think, was it 4 dynamics or 5 dynamics, just looking back even at the assessment that you created a few months back. The yin and yang, and how if we're here that it communicates something, if we're here it communicates another thing, that the whole body dynamic, if you can go back and just describe it, and then if you can lead us into a practice, I think that would be fantastic.
Trying to think of a bite-sized piece that would fit
Okay.
that would nest well within an interview.
Okay.
Let's try this. Let's try just a simple way of a breath movement combination. That would be one way to embody this toroidal flow.
Okay.
That we were talking about. It's a little bit different than what you were talking about with the assessments, but when we get into that assessment structure, that gets into a whole other related but distinct piece of the 3 dimensions and their polarities, and then I fear that would like overtake all our time, and we'd still leave people like, what?
We follow you, man. You take the lead on what you feel is the best in this moment.
Yeah, I think yeah, just to maybe to ground in the body a little bit more what we've just been exploring, right, with these 4 phases. So one of I give like a brief rationale for embodiment. You know, we're talking these concepts, right? We're talking souls, we're talking time, temporal extension, toroidal flow. These are all concepts.
Mm-hmm.
When we can bring these into, and of course, then we can ideally point to, like in the story that I just told about stimulus, appraisal, response, and reorientation. Hopefully those concepts refer to something in our life that makes sense. But the more we can bring them even back to physical processes that we can do and feel with the body, right, the more it just grounds it in reality. And then we can see as we do that, we can also, it will bring up feelings. It'll bring up, this phase is more comfortable than that phase. And then more associations will be triggered. Oh, I noticed that I was like this in that situation. Maybe I could have been more in this phase of the toroidal flow, right? So it helps us really integrate embodied practices that we can connect to our life, help us to really speed that integration process in both more real self-awareness, but then ideally also a way to really practice that. To shift, so maybe the next time we do hang out more in that stage instead of rushing to that stage or whatever. So let's give it a try then.
Let's do it.
There's going to be 2 or 3 layers to this. There's the sound, the breath, and the movement. So let's just start off with the sound. The sound really attunes. I say sound, it's really the shape of our mouth and the shape that we're making. Just say awe as in awesome. Awe.
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 Yeah, it's like you just let your jaw drop and you go awe.
Awe. Awe.
Yeah, and then let your body just sort of mirror that by holding.
Can you see me? Let me move my camera back.
By holding a space like this. Awe.
Awe.
Yeah, just round your elbows there and let your chest be soft and in, so there's kind of a space that's here. Awe.
I feel like I'm doing Qigong.
Qigong, like this basic, So imagine that this is like the outside of this torus, right? This is the outside of it. Awe. We're just holding this experience here. Awe.
Awe.
Awe. You can even look at it like, awe.
Awe.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. And maybe it's awesome, maybe it's not, right? But we're giving it some space.
That's right. I think I'll expand a little bit on that last one, man.
Right, you could be like, oh. Yeah. Or you could even be like, oh. So you can have different sides. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's drop that for a moment. And now we're going to go to the other pole, which is going to be E.
Okay.
E as in easy. E. Yeah. Bring your fingertips together and bring them up in front of your heart, kind of up and in. E. Right. E. Right. So that's the center, right?
Going to the board.
Right. So here we've got our awe, right?
E.
And here we've got our E. Now I write E in the more European way, so I write it with an I.
Okay. Now I have to say,
in most European languages, they pronounce that E.
Yes, audience members, while we're doing this, you guys got to do this too, so don't leave me out there hanging. E. All right? Okay, Dylan.
E. Yeah.
E.
So let's just contrast and compare.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Oh.
E.
E. You can feel the difference, man.
You do, don't
like
you?
just within that quick little E.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
I was excited. I got excited.
Now we're going to do what's called in phonetics a diphthong. So I'll demonstrate. We're just going to in one. Yeah. So we're going to go I.
Okay. I.
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 I. Yeah.
I.
Make sure you're still holding it there.
Okay.
So keep it, bring it in just a little bit so it's round. Yeah.
Okay.
I might not be super explicit, but here I'm bringing the chest in, and with the E, the chest is out.
See. So
here I'm outside of it, and here I'm inside of it.
Uh-huh.
And imagine really this, that you were shifting into the center, the epicenter of the torus. So here you're holding it, here you're shifting into the center. Yeah. 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 And hold it close to you, the E.
Okay.
Yeah.
E.
Voila.
Is that better?
Yeah. 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 Okay. And then try the other one. E.
E.
E. Right. Let that be like a dispersion. Yeah. You can really let that low tension. It just sort of happens. So it's higher tension, lower tension. Yeah. There you go. Good.
Wow.
Yeah. So now let's go. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again. Feel that whole trajectory in your body. Try even closing your eyes. And just feel the process of centering, the process of dispersing back out.
All right.
Here we go. And last time.
Yes. 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 I love it. I love it, man.
Last step is the breath.
Okay.
Right now we've been doing sound and movement.
Okay.
So let me just demonstrate. What we're going to do is we're going to breathe. If we say this is the center line, we're going to breathe in and we're going to breathe out. Okay. So there's 4 phases to the torus, okay? There's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Okay. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is This is an exhale. This is an inhale. So watch. It goes like this. Inhale. I'm now not going to make the sound. I'm going to breathe across the shape of the sound. So it looks like this. So that first one, I'm breathing in. Still inhaling. Yeah.
I'm still inhaling.
It takes some practice. That's why it takes a little practice.
Yeah.
It's a diphthong. It's a diphthong in breath.
Okay. That's the quiet mouth
Yeah.
here.
The challenge is always for people who start not to take in too much air in the because you still need some air to do your E.
Okay, I got it. Okay. I feel like I'm back in my private music lessons.
And then reverse it.
Okay.
Reverse it. So it's E, It's a palindrome.
And it's exhaling.
Yeah. I'll demonstrate one more time.
Okay.
Let's watch. So
I may have to start with a
not
lighter
to take
breath.
up the whole interview with this. I mean, I'm happy to, but here, let me demonstrate it once. You can maybe just watch once and then join.
Yes.
So it goes. So I'm pulling up on the E, and then I'm pushing it through, out, and around on the ah.
Mm-hmm.
Should we try it?
Okay.
Right. Remember this point right here. That's the turning point. So from here, then I turn this way so that I can push that way.
Man, that takes some practice, Dylan.
Yeah.
But I have it recorded now, so I can go back and I can watch and I can practice. So.
Yeah. There's a few things that are a little not what people are used to, but I assure you within like even just 2 times 10 minutes of practicing that, your body settles into it.
Yeah, it was just amazing going from the first practice to the second part, or the first part to the second part. I don't know, even the energy in the body, how it shifted just in those movements. And, as I've shared with you, being a music major and different forms with the mouth and the different sounds in the mouth, being intentional about those sounds and movements, but adding the body to it seems to add in a whole different dimension to that. So that's I like that. I really like it. And hopefully the audience will enjoy it too.
Now that you have experienced that, and you and anybody that either experienced it vicariously by just watching or actually
sure.
Let me just quickly reflect back to these 4 phases that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So, and now I chose a specific set of sounds and movements for this toroidal flow. Mm-hmm. We do different sounds and movements in different toroidal flows, so different ways to roll, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Okay. But so I'm not speaking, I don't want people to jump to the hasty conclusion that this is the only way that we do this. There's lots of ways to do it, but this is one of the main ways that I would introduce it. Mm-hmm. Because it's a clear, simple way of getting the basic process. So with this I use this a lot with clients who are like caught in a certain experience, and I want to get them to just sort of back out of it and just hold the experience, much like an embodied mindfulness. Like in Buddhism, we have mindfulness where you go, I am not this anger, I am not these thoughts, where we try to detach from that so we're not embedded in it. Right? This is a way of doing that in an embodied way, so we're holding it, right, and not caught in it, right? Which is more shifting into the center of it, right? So then I can track with the E, how am I entering into this? How am I bringing this together? How am I processing this information, right? And I can feel, am I ready to do this or am I not? I had something a month or 2 ago happened in my life that created a massive shift in my life personally and professionally. And like, I realized that, it was as with when any big thing happens, or even the small things that happen, right? Like, you go into it like this, right? I needed time to like go back out with it and just hold space for it. Yeah. Right. And resist that urge to make stories about it. Right. Which I was doing anyway, but this helped me to back out of that, and hold space for it, and then re-enter more slowly and consciously. How am I gonna do this? Right. And then to really attend to that moment of when and how does this want to shift that, make that all important turn into response, and that's clear in this particular set of movements. This one would help me to do that in a more organized, focused, intentional way. And so I'm not like, maybe more like that. Right. And then from there to make that action, set that intention, boom, and then let it go. So I'm not like still trying to do it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But right, but to boom, then let it go, right? And let cause and effect play itself out and aware it, right? Reorient it. I wrote that email. I took that decision. Okay, I'm gonna let go now and let the wheel of life, roll a bit.
Yeah. Wow, man. I think this would be a nice transition to say, if people wanted to get in contact with you and they wanted to learn more about what you do, can you provide us with contact information? How can we reach you?
Yeah. Right now, basically the best thing to do is to go to my personal website, which is just dylannewcomb.com.
Okay.
And if people just Google Dylan Newcomb, they'll see it. And right now I'm primarily doing one-on-one coaching. So as I said, I'm helping people. I'm using these kind of things all the time, but as an embodied way to help people get clear on, help them through that process. We could even use this as a metaphor for my coaching, helping them how to hold, because a lot of it, people come to me, they're already in it and they're wrestling and they want me to jump in with them and try to untangle the tangle. And a lot of it is going, let's back the hell out. Let's get back to here and and optimize how we're even holding our experience. Because it all starts from the quality of the stimulus. Good ingredients, good cake.
Absolutely.
And so it starts with with how you're holding the stimulus, all the stimuli in your life.
Yeah.
And then going through it. How are we processing? How are we relating to it? How are we emotionally beginning? This is a very emotional zone, right? Because our emotions are a key causative factor in how we mix those ingredients together, right? So then we want to really do that skillfully and consciously, and then so that those actions really are integrated. They're really skillful. So I do a lot of that one-on-one now. I have a website for Uzazu, which is the website of the work, which is uzazu.org, which is uzazu.org. There's not that much there right now at all. So I'm always like a little embarrassed to even point people to it. I'm in the process now of reorganizing it and revamping it. What happened is it was happening about 6 years ago. It was a pretty cool website with a lot of stuff on it. Now it looks kind of like a graveyard at this current junction, because I went through a number of changes with how I was understanding the work and how I was holding it, and so I sort of recoiled back into my coaching to support myself and to refocus all of the. I read a lot of academic journals, and I just really felt a need to ground my work in embodied cognitive neuroscience and systems theory and other fields, and make sure that the way I was holding it was really built to last, that I was really on solid foundation. So I spent a lot of time validating my work, researching my work, corroborating it, and tweaking it, aligning it with really good ingredients, And so now I'm getting ready to relaunch it. And now I feel like I have a more solid, it was good before, but now it's like solid.
Awesome.
And then I feel like I'll be building the platform of Uzazu and the practices and the certifications, because I've been certifying people and it was good, but I didn't feel fully in integrity with it yet.
Wow.
Also, that's a whole topic, but there's not that much there right now, but it's going to be unfolding a lot more in the coming months and 2 years.
Okay.
There's that piece.
No, man, I think it's like the double-edged sword of making any kind of production in this way is that, right when you're ready to hit the conclusion on the matter, you get maybe one or more than a few pieces of information that just revolutionizes the way that you've been looking at your current work, and you realize, this ain't going out right now. You realize that there's much more space and many more things that need to be brought into it, man. So, that being said, I would love to do this again Dylan. I would love to do just this, the flow of it and the sharing. And, you know, as you know, that this week I'm doing another interview with the group to talk about the next era of humanity and really defining this next era of humanity and mything the new story and chapter. And at some point, I would love to hear from you your perspective of where do you sense humanity in the planet. Let me not just include humanity, because I believe the planet, including everything from the animals to everything, what kind of shifts do you sense is happening, and how do you think that your body of work and your research is contributing to this change? And so I know that would require an entire, maybe 2 or 3 different series, but just to put that into the environment, man, I would love to revisit that conversation with you at some point.
I'd be happy to do so. Yeah, that's indeed a rich, big topic. I'd be happy to dive in there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man.
Are there any other things, that you want to ask before we close off for right now?
You know, there's a whole slew of things I would love to dive in and ask, but I'm gonna tell you, I have a few variables that's working against me. One is I don't have a charger for my laptop, and so my laptop is about to shut off, and I want to make sure I end the interview with some monicum of appropriateness instead of just a blunt shut off. But I think we've touched on many things that, even though there wasn't the explicit question asked about, you know, what is an old soul and do you consider yourself to be an old soul, I think that your stories spoke for themselves, and it just moved in the way that I felt that it needed to move. And so I'm really satisfied with what we've been able to do in this moment. So thank you for sharing the space with me, brother.
I've enjoyed it.
Good.
A pleasure.
I will be sure to include your links on how people can contact you once I'm able to upload the video. And I'll post it to my Facebook and keep it in my space. And eventually, you hold me to it, but eventually I am working on a website, so I'll be able to get all of my interviews uploaded on that website. Currently, it's just going to be found in the OldSoulz YouTube channel. And so you may just see it floating around a little like yourself. I'm trying to reinvent and re-upload and get things in a more presentable method than what they are in, but I want to keep it moving forward in the meantime.
Sounds good.
Okay. Sounds
good. Well, thank you for having me and for being in this flow together. It was a fun way to spend an hour.
Excellent.
And I hope that people will enjoy our time together.
If no one else does, I will, and I'll go back and watch it. But I think that people really are going to be blessed by it. So thank you, Dylan, and look forward to talking to you soon, man. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Be well.
All right. Bye-bye.